Sides of a Dime. I'm Chite.
And I'm Eduek.
Today we're going to talk about the different methods of paying off your debt. The two most common ones are the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. Tell us a little bit about the debt snowball.
So the debt snowball is, so now in the first episode we told you to list all your debt. So you want to take the debt that is the least amount, so that maybe $100 traffic ticket that you got, put that from the smallest to the largest. So for if you have your mortgage, it's probably going to be the most expensive debt that you have. So you want to list from the smallest to the largest. And the second one is the avalanche. So
the debt avalanche is paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first. So you're not looking at the amount of debt, but you're looking at the amount of interest rate. So the debt that's going to cost you the most is the one that you pay for first, and then you go leave it, because the idea is the ones with the lower interest rate will not grow as fast as the ones with the higher interest rate. So you're trying to get rid of the ones with the higher interest rates, so that at the end of the day you were left with the one debt payment that is the one with the least interest rate. So like if you have a credit card with a 19.99% interest rate, and you have a student loan at 7%, and you have a mortgage at 3%, you would start with your credit card debt first at $19.99, and then your student loan payment at 7%, and then your mortgage would be last at 3%.
So just a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of both. For the debt snowball works, or it's better when you have a lot of small chunks of debt here and there. So you're owing $100 on this credit card, you're owing $5,000 on this credit card, you have a medical bill of $300 or $3,000. You have all of these little chunks of debt that are scattered all over the place. So the idea of a debt snowball is actually, it's more of a mental thing. So the idea is to list all of your debt from the smallest to the largest, regardless of how much interest it is. So when you see the progress that you're making and you're paying off those small amounts, it motivates you and keeps you, it motivates you to keep going, because you're having those quick wins. So as opposed to if you had like a $15,000 credit card or something that you're trying to pay, it would take you longer to pay that amount, that entire amount, and you might lose that motivation. So it's more of a mental thing where you celebrate those small victories, and it actually helps you stay on track. And then if you have, say for example, you can kind of do a mix and match. If you have two debts that are almost the exact same amount, so if you have a store credit card of $500, and then you have maybe another credit card of about maybe $600, and then that $600 credit card is at 11%, and then the $500 credit card is at 29.99%. You want to pay off that $500 that is at a higher interest rate. So if you can do the snowball, but if you have two amounts that are similar in an amount or close enough, you can do the higher one first. It's a snowball effect where the first one picks up, and then avalanche. Yeah, you keep going, and then whatever payment that you had for so if you pay off that $500 and then you pay off that $600, whatever minimum payment that you had within those two, you then take that entire amount and add it to the next debt that is along that path of that snowball, and just keep going until you have that giant, maybe your mortgage or that student loan or whatever it is that is the biggest amount, and then add all of those small payments to it in addition to your extra payments, and then you can pay it up faster.
So like the avalanche it's more realistic if the amount with the highest interest rate is also the amount with the smallest balance. So like if you have a credit card that is maybe $5,000, and then your student loans are at $10,000, and then your mortgage is at $100, the avalanche
is $100?
$100,000.
I wish.
At $100,000, then the avalanche makes sense, because then you're completing the ones. The 5,000 is the one with the highest interest rate, but it's also the smallest. That way you're still snowballing and avalanching at the same time. It's harder to avalanche when your credit card balance is maybe at 20,000 and your interest rate is maybe at 20.99 or, at 19.99 and your credit card is at 20,000 and then your student loan is at 7% and it's maybe at 5,000. So you kind of want to pay the 5,000, but you can't because you're paying on the one with the higher interest rate. So it's going to take you forever to pay down the 20,000. And then after you're done with the 20,000 to go and pay the 5,000. So that's why most people prefer that Snowball over the Avalanche because there's no instant gratification when you're doing the Avalanche if the amount that is the highest is also the amount that has got the highest interest rate. So what method did you use in paying off your debts?
Okay, before we get into that, we want to talk about the first thing that you need to do before you actually start paying off your debt. You want to set aside an emergency fund. Because the last thing we want you to do is to say, okay, I'm gonna put every extra money that I have towards my debt, and then when something comes up, you end up having to use your credit card to pay for that thing. So you're never gonna have to use credit at this point. We want you to save an amount that you know that if something happens, if lose my job or there's a flood in the basement or like there's a major thing that happens in the house, it's more like get me started rather than fix that issue. Because ideally, for an ideal emergency fund, it should be 3 months of your income of your expenses. But because we don't want to be letting money sit in our account, we want to figure out, okay, all of those things that come up, like Chite, she has a lot of these expenses for her car. So if those expenses are frequent, it has to stay in your budget. It's basically for an unforeseen expense. Like as you're sitting right now, you don't know that thing is going to happen. So if you have renovations coming up in your house, it's not an emergency. You know that you're going to have renovations in the next 5 months. Don't put that as an emergency fund. It's just, as I'm sitting here, I don't know. It's an unforeseen thing that could happen at any time. Like my car is functioning fine. There's nothing that I have to fix. I don't know what could happen. I could be driving and like something can happen. I don't know what that is. So that for me would be an emergency because I already have a prepaid maintenance that I'm doing. But if anything outside of that happens, I might have to dip into my emergency. Something happens and I'm out of a job. I need something that I could at least let me be afloat, like buy food and give me at least a month till I get something to supplement my income. So it depends on your situation. If you have a bigger family, for a lot of people, they use the $1,000. So there's lots of
school of thoughts.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think that $1,000 is enough for a single
person. I think that's
woman that doesn't have a lot of responsibilities.
We don't have children. We don't have pets. We don't have anything.
Yeah,
$1,000 is enough.
I feel like $1,000 is enough, and I have never had to since the start of this year. I've never had to dip into it, and I've tried my best as much as possible as. Anything that comes up within the month, I've tried to either adjust my budget for it or I could delay an expense. So I can delay, say, okay, if I had like a birthday fund coming up and then I had a traffic ticket or I had my tires go out, I would delay that fund and pay for that thing rather than go to my emergency fund. I want to still leave that amount stagnant. I don't want to have to keep going to take from it and replenishing it as time goes on. And as time goes on, you're going to have to replenish it if you take out of it. So you want to give yourself that buffer, that safe, whatever amount it is, but don't make it too high. Don't try to have like a $5,000 emergency fund. If you feel that you absolutely have to have it, then save that amount. So that's the first step. Whatever extra money that you looked at your budget and this is what you're getting, start putting it towards that emergency fund. And when you hit that amount, then you can start paying off your debt. For me, what I did was, mine was a whirlwind. So it wasn't a snowball.
Tornado.
It wasn't a snowball. It wasn't an avalanche. It was more of a tornado. It was whatever angered me the most. Basically, that's just the truth. I was like, whatever is making me mad at this point.
She had a debt rage.
I want to get rid of it. So, I had mentioned earlier that I had like a debt-free episode in my life at some point. where I paid off all of my consumer debt. So when I did that, I actually did the Snowball. So I had credit cards. I had like a store credit card that I had used to furnish my apartment and stuff like that. So I actually snowballed all of those and I paid that off, and that worked out for me at that stage. But for now, when I started this journey, I had a store credit card that was no pay for 6 months that I got, and like electronics store. So for me, that was not the smallest amount, but that was what was urgent that I had to pay up, because if I had gotten to that 6 months, I would have to pay, I think it was a $29.99 interest rate on all of the past month. So I needed to get rid of that one first. And then after I got rid of that, when I had lost my job, I had to borrow money from a couple of friends. So I had to pay those off. So it was a total of $1,000. So I had to pay that off because I had to give them back their money. So I did that. And then I went to the next one was my credit card. It was a bank credit card of $1,800. So that was the next one that I paid. Ideally, I should have pay off the friends that I owed money first, and then pay off that store credit card, and then this bank credit card. But because of like the priority for me, I kind of just adjusted everything around. And then after that, I paid off my overdraft. So I had been I have been in the minus for a good maybe 6 months. So I was just like, okay, I'm done seeing minus in my account. Even though I wasn't spending more than I was making, but because I was already in the negative and I'd already pre-planned all that amount of money going to other things, I was always still in the negative. So it was a negative of my before life, of my previous life, before I started paying off debt. So I did that, and so I paid off the bank credit card, which was $1,800. I paid that off, closed it, and then I went to my overdraft of $500. So I saved up that extra $500 to cover for my overdraft, and I paid that, and then I went to my main credit card, which is $15,500. So after that, I guess I should just list the rest of my debt. I have the $15,000 credit card, and after that, I have a $10,000 line of credit, and after that, I have as at that time, I had about $18,000 for my car payment left. So for me, my car payment is 2%. So that I'm going to leave that as my very last payment, because I'm not paying enough interest in that to snowball it or to avalanche. So that could stay. The next thing at that point, I could have paid off my line of credit before my credit card, but because of the way revolving credit works for credit cards, I'm paying more interest. I have the same interest rate for both of them, by the way. I pay 11% for my credit card and my line of credit. But because of my line of credit, I'm only paying on the principal, right? Or the way it works out, I end up paying more on my credit card than my line of credit. So for me, I had to get rid of that first before my line of credit. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So at this stage, I'm still paying off that credit card, and when I'm done with that, then I'm gonna go to my line of credit, which is $10,000, and pay that off. And then when I'm done, I'm gonna go back. And the good thing is that for my car payment, because I have a minimum payment that I have to pay, it's still reducing. So it's not just staying at $18,000. So it's kind of up to par with my line of. I think by the time I get to my line of credit, both my car payment and my line of credit will be at the same amount, the same balance. So I would do my line of credit because it's a higher interest rate, and then I would do my line of credit last.
So basically you did an avalanche because you did based on things that were costing you more. Like you paid things based on the things that were costing you more. Like the store credit was going to cost you more. Yeah. Then your friends were going to cost you your friendship. And then, exactly. So like paying the things that are costing you more is the avalanche of money.
For some reason, my credit card just pisses me the hell off. Like every time I wake up in the morning, I look at my credit card, like I stare at it like it's gonna go down. The more I stare at it, I'm just like, how can I make you go down? How can I make you disappear from my life? So for me, that was like the most important thing for me to get rid of. So I'm just like, okay, I need to work this out. I need to get this to zero and then move on from there. So what about you? You said you're using an avalanche, but
so I've use the Avalanche method mostly because I've always hated having a balance on my credit card. And although I've always had a constant student loan payment, and the good thing is when I set up my student loan payments, it wasn't just the basic interest payment. It was interest plus principal payment. So the amount that I was already paying for my student loans was above the interest. So I was like, my balance was reducing each month. So for me, because that one was a lower percent, it wasn't a priority to pay off compared to my credit card amount. So I've always had a credit card. Sometimes I've had, like, the balance was not always high. So whenever I got my money, I would pay my credit card first before I paid my student loans, because my student loans were the same amount every single month. And so when I decided that I wanted to, like, clear off all my debt, when my credit card debt was at $13,000. So now you can really see the avalanche, because my credit card debt was at $13,000. My student loan was at $7,000. So my credit card debt was higher than my student loan. So, and my credit card was at $19.99. So I was paying more interest on my credit card. And my student loan was at 6.80 something. So that was about 7%. So for me, my priority was to pay off that credit card. So I was throwing every extra bit of cash on my credit card until I decided to consolidate my debt and merge it all into one. And then now I'm just making one lump sum payment.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we've been doing. If you have a mortgage, I think either way, it kind of works out, because it will always be the highest thing. So it's going to be the highest
balance and the lowest interest rate. So chances are it's going to wait till the end.
Exactly. Yeah. There are a lot of times where things are going to happen in life. You might have a major life event happen to you, and you might have to suspend it. It is totally okay, as long as that life event is not something that you have to... I'm hoping that it's not something that's going to that's going to nullify all of your efforts and make you go back into debt. But it's okay if you have to take a break and figure out your situation. If along the line you find out that you're having a baby, so you have to start saving for that, you can pause and save for what you need to save. If along the line that something, I don't know, maybe something, family member is sick and needs your support, whatever it is, it's okay to take that break. Don't be too hard on yourself. Celebrate every victory that you get. And oh my goodness, I have 2 credit cards that I cut up, and it was the best feeling in the world. Like, I cut it up, I called them on the phone, and I closed it. They're like, "You want to close it?" I'm like, "Yep, I don't need it anymore." And guess what? That store, every single month, they send me a pre-approved credit.
Well.
In the mail.
Look who's looking for customers.
All of a sudden. So celebrate every victory that you have. If you have, like, all of your debt consolidated into one, just celebrate the milestone. So if you can say, for this month, I want to hit 2% or 5%, whatever it is, give yourself that goal, set it. And when you achieve that milestone, celebrate it. And you've done the hard work, and just keep going. And you can do whatever works for you.
Yeah, some people have used most people have used the debt snowball.
Yeah, the debt snowball is, like, I think that's what is the most
successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, depending on your life situation and how you feel, how annoying the debt is to you, you might want to do the avalanche. Yeah. Because that way you're getting rid of things that are more painful for you than, just...
Yeah, and another thing is, you can also, maybe you might have something that has gone into collections, and even though that might be a higher percentage, or it might be a high amount, you might want to get rid of that first, because that's actually damaging your credit history and all of that stuff. So it depends. Like, a lot of people have different situations. Ours, I feel like our situation is very basic. So there are a lot of people that have a lot of, so just analyze it and look at what is the most, we talked about when you're setting goals, like, what is the most realistic and achievable, and set that goal for yourself and say, okay, this is the first one that I'm going to get rid of. And then you can start attacking the other smaller goals. And Send us pictures of when you cut up that credit card, okay?
Yes,
we want
I
to
cut up
see
mine too when I
all of that.
consolidated. Yeah, but maybe we'll post some pictures of ours.
Yeah, I'm gonna post mine. I'm gonna post everything, so watch out for that. Well, I already cut up 2, so I think I have pictures of those that I can post. Yeah, so until our next episode.
Follow us on all our social media at Two Sides of a Dime. And if you want to send us an email, if you want to ask for suggestions, send us an email at twosidesofadime@gmail.com. Follow us on all our socials, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.